and some 185 miles to race, we could see more than one pit stop.
Well, we're live at the Italian Grand Prix. This is Jackie Stewart speaking, but Larry Newber's with me, and John Visignano, of course, this time is in the pit. The cars are just leaving the grid right now. It looks like Prost's car is not moving away. Neither is Fabi's car moving away. People are moving around those cars as the cars go along in their pace lap. This, of course, is a lap that counts for the race, but it's at slow speeds and they will come and re-grid. Let's go through the starting grid right now. Theo Fabi's on pole position. Remember, he held that pole position in Indianapolis once before. Alain Prost alongside him in the Marlboro McLaren. Then Nigel Mansell for Britain, with Gerhard Berger in the other Benetton car alongside him. Ayrton Senna, who incidentally had his refresher tube not work for his drinking during the race and the warm-up here just before the start. He was having trouble with it. Nelson Piquet from Brazil is alongside him. Then Derek Warwick had trouble this morning, is now in his backup car. He's 7th fastest. Keke Rosberg is 8th fastest. Michele Alboreto, driving the Ferrari, is 9th fastest with another Italian alongside him on the grid, 10th fastest. René Arnoux, then Stefan Johansson and the other Ferrari 12. Terry Boutsen, he's up there in the lineup at 13th fastest. He was having metering unit trouble, had that changed just a few minutes ago. Alio is 14th. Patrick Tambay in the first of the 4 engines is 15th. Then Christian Danner, he'll be starting in his best start ever in 16th, and he's got no first gear for the starting grid. Standing start, watch out for that, could cause trouble for the cars behind. Johnny Dumfries is 17th. Alan Jones from Australia with the other Ford engine Lola is 18th. Then Nannini, the Italian, and Brundle on that row, 19th and 20th. De Cesaris is 21st. Jonathan Palmer, the good doctor, is 22nd. Streff is, he's 23rd, and he had trouble. He had an engine change just before this race. The warm-up this morning blew an engine. Rothengat is back in 24th. Ivan Capelli, he had an engine change as well. A new team called AGS starting this race for the very first race. They've been in Formula 2 before. He's 25th fastest. Ginzani in the Osella is 26th. And then bringing up the grid, a new driver coming out of Formula 3, an Italian called Cafe. There should only be 26 on the grid, but there was allowed to have 27 cars. Now look at the camera that we've got, of course, in the car. As the cars head down, that's the washer that is cleaning the lens of the camera as the cars come down to the famous Parabolica.
That is Christian Danner, about the 5th car in line. There's a cream-colored car right there in the center part of your screen right now that you saw the in-car camera from. And Jackie, some real drama here with Alain Prost sitting at the start-finish line, as well as the pole sitter Fabi. I think I saw Fabi at the end of the line, but boy, could that have an effect on the points championship for this year, as well as the winner of this race. I would imagine that Fabi, and there is Prost still
in the pit lane.
He is sitting on the front stretch in the pits lane. He'll have to come out after the green flag drops.
This could be a fantastic race for him, but John Visignano's in the pits. John, quickly down to you.
Just very quickly, I'm standing right next to Alain Prost. He is in real trouble down here. They have the spare car ready, but he will not be able to go out of the pits until after the start. Back to you, Jackie.
Well, in the top left-hand corner, you will see the light system. When it comes onto red, keep an eye on that. As soon as it comes to green, of course, they go. Now look out for Christian Danner, and you'll be able to see the car right at the very back, of course, is the final car, the 27th car. Now the light will not come in until all the cars have come to a stop. Derek Ungaro is in charge of that. The Italians are trying to find the lighting system at the moment with the Quantel box.
That's Fabi back there, is it not?
It could be Fabi.
I believe it's Fabi, yes. Very middle of the screen.
Yes, because there's a Williams up here.
Hole in the front line on the grid.
And that's the hole in the front end, and there's the red on. We're ready. And they're off. And the Williams seems to have it. Christian Danner going slowly. It's a clean starter so far. Almost stopped.
Looked like Senna, Jack.
And there you see, and it is Berger who's taken the lead. Berger with the 2 Williams is after that.
I believe that was Ayrton. I did not see him in that pack. I saw Dumfries go by. There goes Fabi in the green Benetton car. Wow, what a lot of shuffling on up front, even before this race officially gets underway.
And Alain Prost is left in the pit lane to be able to draw out after the...
There's Ayrton.
A World Championship contender stepping out of his car over Monza, only a few hundred yards. I personally have done this at Monza. I did it in 1971 or 72, I can't recall. But that was an amazing start, a real shuffle. And look at Gerhard Berger, who's an enormously talented young man at the present time, has just pulled away in the BMW engine just so significantly as the car sparked on this not billiard table smooth Monza racetrack. The two Williams is tight behind him. Keke Rosberg's being threatened by a Ferrari. And that's Alboreto coming through there in the Ferrari right behind Prost as they go through there. A very open field, and this still the first lap of the Grand Prix of Italy. We're live. Theo Fabi's gained quite a few places. Alain Prost has picked up about 3 places already. You could see a sterling drive put in by Alain Prost.
He is certainly capable of doing it. We've seen it many, many times now. All the sparks that we're seeing here, this is commonplace. This has been happening all weekend here at the Monza racetrack. The drivers have been not exactly complaining, but pointing out rather seriously that the cars do bottom out all the way around this racetrack. It's a fast speedway. The top speeds, rather, a fast circuit, the top speeds here are almost 220 miles an hour. As you see Alboreto, much to the delight of the homeland Italian fans, picking up a position. Almost 220 miles an hour as they go past the start-finish line in front of our position here and just before the first chicane.
Well, the order right now is, of course, that car there, the Benetton car, followed by Nigel Mansell, then Nelson Piquet, then one of the Ligier, then Alboreto, then Keke Rosberg, then Johansson. Then we have another of the Ligier cars, followed by Derek Warwick in the Brabham, which is good for them. So we have a situation where the Benetton, driven by Gerhard Berger, young man who looks like he's heading towards Ferrari, in front of an Italian crowd here, doing an amazingly fast job. The BMW has not been going well this year in the Brabham chassis. The Benetton chassis has really come right, and they certainly are demonstrating as Warwick slips through past Arnaud there, and Johnny Dumfries is well up. Then you see Patrese getting past Terry Boutsen, and Theo Fabi continues, and Rothenkatter pulls out. He looks like his day in the office is over also.
Well, Alboreto, as you see him go by, there goes Rosberg, there goes Johansson, having a very good race. You know, he didn't practice at all on Friday here. There was a lot of speculation as to what exactly was the problem with Michele, but some said he had an upset stomach. There was also a report that he slipped in the shower and fell and partially sprained his shoulder. And as you heard at the top of the show, it's somewhat unfortunate, I guess, is that something like that just can't occur when things aren't going well because so much speculation erupts. But Michele had a pretty good day of practice and qualifying yesterday, and so far the early part of his race has been strong.
Well, Gerhard Berger is losing a slight edge in his lead with Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet, all leaders in the World Championship, competing here live at the Italian Grand Prix, and we'll be back. Coverage of the Grand Prix of Italy. The Grand Prix of Italy is being brought to you by BF Goodrich.
Kind of bring you up to date here in the early stages of this race. This is the Italian Grand Prix from the eternally famous Monza. There is Ayrton Senna, the Mr. Speed of the 1986 season of the Formula One Grand Prix circus, who has dropped out here in the early stages of the race. He is one of 4 people who came into today's race with a real clean shot at the season-long, the much-coveted World's Championship. Nigel Mansell led the points with 55 points. Remember, 9 points are awarded to the winner of every Grand Prix race. Alain Prost was second with 53 points, just 2 behind Nigel. Senna, whom you just saw on the screen, out of the race already, was 7 behind Mansell with 48. And Nelson Piquet was 4th, just 1 behind Senna. He had 47. They are the only 4 who are really in it for the championship. Now, while we were away, Jackie, we also saw Patrick Tambay limping back toward the pits.
And there's Patrese coming back. Also, he's got a front wheel out of line. I wouldn't at all be surprised if Patrese and Tambay had come into contact with each other, although they are on the same side where the damage has been done. They're both on the left-hand side, so something's gone wrong for both of those cars. Not a good day for either of them. Let's just run through the order as we've got it right now. Gerhard Berger is leading. Then Nigel Mansell is in second place. Nelson Piquet in third place. Alboreto.
Well, picking up from there, Rosberg is in 6th position. Stefan Johansson, Jackie's having a bit of a problem with his mic, is in 7th. Derek Warwick was being shown in 8th, and Philippe Alliot It was in 9th position in the Eder Ligier, and Johnny Dumfries, Ayrton Senna's teammate, was in 10th position. Jackie, let's try that when we switch headsets here.
Well, maybe this will be a little bit better. We were having a lot of breakup there in our headset.
Got down to 10th, Jackie.
We got 10th. Okay, so Johnny Dumfries is in 10th, and Theo Fabi, who started at the back end of the grid, has come up now to 11th position. Remember, he was in pole position, and this is a tremendous battle that's going on right now, and that battle is right between 5th, 6th, and 7th position. Remy Arnoux, Keke Rosberg, and Stefan Johansson. That's a good battle right there. So Theo Fabi is up there, then Alan Jones, then Butson, Brundle, Prost is up to 15th position right now. De Cesare, Streff, Palmer, Nannini, and Dana. Now I hear John Bisignano down in the pits. John, do you have a story?
Yes, Jackie, just to bring you up to date on Ayrton Senna, it was his gearbox that gave out on the start. We think that the first gear on acceleration let go and shattered the rest of the box. So unfortunately, Ayrton Senna, very short Italian Grand Prix here in Monza with gearbox failure out of the race.
Well, a serious miss for him in this World Championship with only 4 Grand Prix left to go. You see that the order is up there right now. You can see Piquet is threatening. He's in a good position behind his own teammate, and of course the Ferrari isn't far behind him. It's interesting that the car that's leading this race right now, that's Gerhard Berger driving the Benetton with the BMW engine.
Ooh,
it's never actually won a Grand Prix, and that's something that they are still trying to do. Benetton want desperately to win a Grand Prix. They're, of course, an Italian company in the clothing business, all over the world represented. But right now, it seems to me that the two, Williams and the Ferrari, are closing up on them. Now, there is a tire war going on in front of our eyes, because Gerhard Berger is in Pirelli tires. He's running on Pirelli tires. The cars immediately behind him are running on Goodyear tires. It could be that he's got a soft compound tire on there, and it's beginning to overheat a wee bit, and those cars are now catching him up, because Alboreto has got a substantial lead before we find ourselves in the 5th, 6th, and 7th position, which we saw that close battle going on for.
Those first 4 cars, but Fabi and Prost are closing. They're in heavy traffic. They're not really in the battle here for the first 6 yet. The crowd noise you hear is for the Ferraris as they go past the main grandstand. There is Nigel Mansell beginning to pick up on Berger. Now, those of you who watch Formula One races might be saying, boy, the guys are really hitting the curbs a lot here. Is everybody making mistakes this early on in the race? The drivers tell us this week, and Mansell is beginning to work over, wagging the tail of the dog of Berger. The drivers tell us that you have to drill the curbs here. That is the fastest line. Terry Boots and Jackie told me last night that he was reluctant at first to carry him off the curbs, but what he discovered was he was actually picking up about 2 seconds a lap during a qualifying setup for going 1 lap around this circuit. They had to use the curbs. Goodyear tire engineers, as well as the Pirelli people, also told me last night, wasn't abusive to the tires.
No, I think it's okay as long as they don't use too much of them. If they start getting off of the curb into the loose stuff, then it starts to become a problem. So the Grand Prix of Italy continues. A very tight race for the front end of it. You're looking at it right now. We'll be back for a lot more coverage of this race in just a moment. So you're seeing something that took place while we were away for commercial. There has been a change of leader. Gerhard Berger has been passed by Nigel Mansell. The replay was such that he did it on speed and drafting, and there he went through without any trouble at all. So we have a new leader, and now we are having a situation where Berger is being threatened and about to be passed. As you look now going into the Parabolica, Nelson Piquet takes command of 2nd place from Gerhard Berger, and now Berger is going to be under pressure from Michele Alboreto. Keep in mind what I said about the tire war. It could easily be that this is the reason, and it looks like the Ferrari in front of the main crowd here. Oh, what a way to go.
That is an Evel Knievel move if I've ever seen one. Not that it takes a lot of courage, but that right in front of the crowd. And boy, did they turn on. The people here in Italy, I'm sure you've heard. And there is De Cesaris in the pits, Andre De Cesaris, who came to Formula One a few years ago, is really showing a great deal of promise in terms of speed. Suffered through a long series of consecutive races where he crashed, and this has been a tough year for Andrea running in the Minardi chassis.
Well, keep in mind that Michele Alboreto came up from 9th position to take the 3rd place that he's in right now. That's a pretty impressive thing, and I have to say that I would have thought that he's doing this on driver, not so much in car. The car clearly has a lot of power. Ferrari have been in very bad shape for most of this season. Alboreto's been threatening to leave. The political situation has been very poor. He's come to Monza here. He didn't come to practice. Whether he fell off his motorbike, as was suggested, whether he slipped in the bathtub is another thing. But it was even suggested he had a very big bathroom. He went in his motorcycle. He slipped in the bathroom driving his motorcycle on the contract that happened to be on the floor. So all of those things could easily have happened.
Streff, by the way, Philippe Streff was one of the data general. Tyrrell's was in the pits.
And I think John Bisignano is down in the pits. John, do you have a story for us?
Exactly, Jackie. Jackie, thank you very much. We have Patrick Tambay. What happened to him is that he spun out on the circuit right in front of Patrese, and Patrese collected him up quite well. Tambay is stuck out on the circuit with body damage and a couple tires gone flat. Patrese's whole left side of the car is absolutely ruined. All the fluids are running out of it, and we have 2 retirements very early on here from Patrese and Tambay.
Well, the program's going on, of course. The program we've got to look for is Alain Prost, who now finds himself up into 12th position, and Theo Fabi is now up into 8th position. Now, this can be done. I remember Jim Clark winning this Italian Grand Prix right from the behind. Right from nowhere he came through and win. I, in 1973, had a puncture in the very early laps of the race, went in and cost myself an enormous amount of time in the pits, left behind everybody else, came through to finish 4th, and by so doing winning the World Championship. Monza historically has been a racetrack where you would expect to see remarkable performances. I'm forecasting that Alain Prost will come through this field, and potentially I would expect Prost to finish in the first 3 or 4. So let's just wait and see that progress. I'm not so confident about Theo Fabi, because if there is a tyre situation that does exist that has taken Berger from leading the race to a very lengthy 4th position at this time, it would obviously be expected that Fabi would do much the same thing. So the Goodyear guys at the moment seem to have the rubber that takes to actually go racing. Whereas qualifying with Fabi on the pole, it was wonderful to see Pirelli doing so well. I think everyone was pleased. I don't know if Goodyear were that pleased, but it's very nice, in my opinion, to see a company getting the rewards that it has so hard tried for over these years. But it's clear that right now they are not really doing quite as well as practice promised.
This is a pretty fast race course also. The race went by more quickly than the typical Formula One Grand Prix. The distance of this course, by the way, is 5.8 kilometers. That's 3.6 miles. It's basically a course. Think in your mind of the shape of a boomerang as we look at the first 6 with Alboreto, as we are told, beginning to close in. You can see he's now just about 2.5 seconds behind. But think in terms of the shape of a boomerang. It's basically a course that is made up of 4 straightaways. This is the 3rd of the 4th, and those 4 straightaways are connected by a series of, there are 3 chicanes and 3, let's call them curve grandos. Probably the most famous one is the parabolic just before the final straightaway on this boomerang shape, which is like the equivalent of the outside of the boomerang, and it is about a mile in length if you include the parabolic right there where Nigel is. After they execute this turn, as you can see, the lane coming out is quite wide, simply because this is much greater than a 90-degree corner. They're on the throttle in the parabolic, and all the way down the front stretch with the speeds that we told you earlier reach about 220 miles an hour.
And they're in 6th gear right now as they begin to brake heavily for this first set of chicanes. They're going in from 6th right down to 2nd gear, accelerating up into 3rd gear right now before they go through this left-hand bend. As they exit, then they go into 4th, into 5th, and then up into 6th gear as they go around this corner, heading for the Lesmo. And they have this sort of Disney-type bridge that they're going to come through under this soft drink.
It's well put, Jackie.
It's rather hard at times, but look how close Piquet has got now, and Alboreto. It seems to me that Nigel Mansell's got a problem. I think we're going to see a pass because Alboreto and Piquet have closed up on Mansell within 1.5 corners almost. That's almost too quickly.
And you can see that Piquet had to get on the brakes much harder than what he wanted to coming out of that last right-hander, because up front, Nigel was running slower.
It seems to me Nigel may have missed a gear or something.
Yeah.
Look, there's Alboreto taking a look at Piquet. Now, this is very dangerous for the Williams team. Again, the Williams team have shown this tremendous domination, not only of this Honda power, but also of the preparation, the engineering that they've got. I think the McLaren team, the Marlboro McLaren team, and the Williams team are clearly the best right now in the business. And it seriously shows right now as we look at this. These two Williams cars being very heavily threatened by Alboreto right now, though.
If that Ferrari takes the lead right here in 2, 3, maybe 4 laps, boy, the dust is going to shake from the rafters of the old Monza course, won't it?
Well, that grandstand, as we said in our pre-race show, was built in 1930. I think is going to get a new experience. Well, look, this is now getting into traffic, and that's the man who's just done the fastest lap. That's Michele Alboreto. They're getting close up there, but they're getting behind the slower cars. That's one of the Ocello cars. And we're at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, famous racetrack, enormously famous crowd. We'll be back for much more after this. We're back live at the Grand Prix of Italy. You're looking at the leaderboard, and that is Nigel Mansell, followed by Nelson Piquet of Brazil, followed by Michele Alboreto of Italy. But we have developments going on here. There's an enormous race going on by Alain Prost, who has now got himself into 8th position in this race ahead of Theo Fabi. Both of them had difficulties at the start, and Ghinzani has spun out. He's hit quite heavily. That's on the exit of the chicane coming down towards the Parabolica. He's okay, he's walking away, he's spun out, got the barrier on the left-hand side of our picture, or right-hand side direction of travel. So that's a problem for him. They're just being a little careful with this turbo power, just in case the temperature gets too high for the paintwork. So Ghinzani with that Ocello is going to end it. They're going to have to pull that car away. While they're trying to clear this wreckage away, John, do you have anything down in the pits?
Yes, Jackie, it looks like the Ocello driver there actually hit the curb a little bit too hard that time coming out of the corner. But Andrea De Cesaris made an early pit stop for 4 tires over 4 Pirellis. Street came in for a new nose cone, so there is some shoving and banging going on out there, especially in and out of the chicane. And while he got the new nose cone, they gave him 4 new Goodyear tires. You've been commenting quite a bit, Jackie, about Pirelli and Goodyear. Pirelli had such high hopes here, being an Italian company. I've never seen such indecision on the grid as far as exactly what combination for these people to use. Most teams for Goodyear went all out with just C's, but right on the grid there were several team managers wanting to put a B on that left rear. So when they come in, we're going to take a close look at these left rears and see if they're holding up the soft D compound. But obviously Pirelli overthought the matter and maybe have gotten themselves in trouble. Jackie, Larry?
Well, for those back in the States, the compounds that they use in these racing cars right now, and that's the Ferrari pit board that's out there. He's lying in 3rd position. That's the number 3 that you saw up there. The compounds of the tires are generally 4 compounds all the way around the same compound. But if a racetrack is clockwise, such as this one, with all of the power that's been pushed out of these 1,000 brake horsepower engines, it can be that the left rear can wear and get temperature much more than any of the other tires. So they put a harder compound to get a lower temperature out of that left rear. So there'll be 3 tires of the same compound on the race car with 1 different compound. So there's the leaderboard. Mansell, Piquet, Alboreto, Berger, Johansson, and Rosberg. And in 7th position right now should be René Arnoux. In 8th position is Alain Prost. And here we have our on-car camera with the USF&G Barclay car. That looks like Christian Danner's head popping around there.
Oh, yeah, checking the mirrors.
He looked in his rear view mirrors. He's heading now for the Parabolica.
Yeah, Christian would be right in front of this group. There they are putting a lap on the good Dr. Jonathan Palmer. As Mansell swings right, he'll dip back to the right side of the racetrack, look for his turn-in point now, go around the Parabolica. Remember, the arc is away from the inside because this is a greater than 90-degree corner. We're already moving up through the gears, completely up into the top gear, the 6th gear at this point, and moving on.
Well, he, in fact, the good doctor went round there quite quickly. Mansell took an enormous advantage by getting Jonathan Palmer before braking going into the Parabolica. This is the first chicane, 2nd gear through here, 3rd gear now. And, of course, Alboreto has passed also. 4th gear. getting... Oh, and Alboreto spun out. Now, the cameraman, and he's gone straight into the barrier.
Oh.
And that was a very heavy accident he had. And here we have...
Nannini.
Perhaps
he came in I was not...
No, not involved in the accident. Not involved in the accident.
Zandro, and Michele has motored on. You can see the place where he went off there, Jackie. It's kind of unusual. It didn't look like it was a very tense situation. Certainly.
He hit a curb. What happened was he got his tires on the outside curb. He got hooked up. It looked like by sheer luck he did not hit the barrier. And there he continues. That's the car you're looking at right now. The Italians may have that in slow motion. If so, I'm sure they'll show it to us. We are, of course, dependent on the Italian television coverage here, which we bring to you. But that was an amazingly fast spin out that Michele Alboreto in third position, remember, and really in contention because he was no distance from these two cars. Now this leaves the two Williams cars in a commanding lead. Nigel Mansell is leading, and keep in mind both of those drivers, and we have another spin out, Derek Warwick in the Brabham. The number of spin-outs that are happening today are quite incredible. The rear wing has collapsed in that car. The rear tire is down. Now here's Michele Alboreto spin. He went over the curb on the inside. It was the outside that did it though. Look, suddenly the car began to break loose. It was power. Then it got hung up. And then he spins. Now unfortunately our cameraman did not cover it. So we have that yellow flag. I think the one we're just showing is the Derek Warwick yellow flag.
Well, I'll tell you, Jackie, that looked to be just plain and simple an error because he didn't really hit a curb any harder than you normally would. He bounced off the curb on the right side of the course. He moved up for his turn-in point there. It was an attempt, I think, to show the interval between first and second. But as I like to say, when they're this close, particularly on a road course, I don't think the amount of daylight or the time is important. And there's Michele into the pits.
John Visignano, you've been watching the pit stop.
Well, I watched it. It was just a little ways away from me. Michele Alboreto made a very quick pit stop, but everyone in the grandstands here is absolutely staggered. They could not see what happened on the other side of the circuit, and they are really wondering what happened to their hero who was battling for this lead. The front grandstands is sitting in post-mortem up here, but was cheering everywhere. Every time he came by, it's absolutely silent here. Back to you.
Capelli has, by the way, Derek Warwick is walking back. That's Derek Warwick, the British driver, who had a problem. The rear wing was hanging off, so he had hit something. The rear tire was down. Ivan Capelli was driving the AGS. He went off at the first chicane while we were having that pit report given to us. There's been an incredible number of incidents. Fortunately, no great accidents. And look at that. Williams weaving his way through past Christian Danner there and the other Ocello, it looks like. So that is Nigel Mansell still going on his winning way here, using those curves. Piquet tucked in behind him. Ginzani there. It's a very impressive, the number of incidents there has been, and yet very little heavy contact. Says a lot for the safety here at Monza. A lot has been done over these few years.
Just got a quick glimpse of the number 22 Osella, which this week is being driven by Alex Caffey. He makes his debut in Formula One this week. He's an Italian who has done well in Formula, 3000 this year? Formula 3 this year, right, Jackie? He won the year... Oh, there was Piquet again getting a little loose coming out of that turn spot halfway around the course, by the way. He won the European Cup, Formula 3 European Cup with Paul Ricard about a month ago and was able to make arrangements for this ride in the Italian Grand Prix at Monza.
Well, we should expect pit stops. There should only be one stop for tires, but that should be taken. Phase not too far away. We've now completed 18 laps of this 51-lap race. We'll be right back for more coverage of the Italian Grand Prix in just a moment. We're back live at the Italian Grand Prix. This is Jackie Stewart along with Larry Nuber and John Visignano. You're looking at the two leaders, first and second from Britain, Nigel Mansell driving the Canon Williams, which of course is Honda powered, and then behind him is Nelson Piquet of Brazil, tucked in a very comfortable second place, but having stretched that lead, Mansell now is a little bit more comfortable. The story of this race, however, is going to turn out to be Alain Prost, who's now in the World Championship point situation because he's got himself up into sixth position, starting from the pit lane. But there has been some controversy because Ron Dennis, the leader of the McLaren International team, that's the Marlboro McLaren team, had been called in front of the officials, had been taken from his pit to discuss something with the officials. And here is Alain Prost catching up on his own teammate Keke Rosberg, who's in fifth position. Alain Prost is driving potentially the race of his life. Theo Fabi in the picture right now. He's got himself up, and look at the Williams team preparing themselves for a wheel change. So they have to be very conscious of what Alain Prost is doing, because keep in mind that the World Championship is entirely at stake here. And of course, you've got Nigel Mansell up there leading the World Championship, and who should be in second place but Alain Prost? So points in the World Championship this year's absolutely essential. That's Jonathan Palmer in there getting his tyres changed. Mansell comes round the Lesmo and clears himself away, and he's got breaking loose. He's breaking loose at the rear end. I don't think it will be too long before we see Nigel Mansell coming in for tyres. Piquet not gaining on him anyway, but Piquet is a very wise driver, very intelligent. He's won the World Championship a few times. It's not the end of the world for him. Gerhard Berger's now found himself in third position again. Stefan Johansson, coming into our picture now, has himself in fourth position.
He's had a steady race, Jackie. You know, talking about those four, I think it's time to start speculating, and everybody back in the States can kind of pick their favorites for the World Championship. Again, those four, we talked about the first two that are also leading this race. Prost is in at third, and the fourth driver would be Senna. I have the feeling that the favorite, and maybe this seems evident to a lot of people, but based on the performances of this year, all four drivers, as we mentioned at the top of the show, have shown the ability to win. I still have the feeling that Prost has got to be considered the favorite, and I'll tell you why. Piquet, certainly, maybe the world's best. I know you feel very strongly about him, Jackie. He's not been with that team that long, nor has Mansell really been with the Williams team as long as Prost has. And Senna, I think, has a lot of very little innuendos that have nothing to do with driver skill, but it's the ability to communicate with the crew about the various tracks that you run around. And when I talk about driver maturity, I'm not talking about the ability behind the wheel. The ability behind the wheel, the physical, athletic part of steering the car. I think all four of them have shown this year that I've got the ability to do that, and all four of them have also shown the ability intellectually to drive a good race. But the team that has the driver that can communicate with them the best, knows the tracks the best, might make the difference. And that's kind of right now where my partiality lies in terms of trying to select a world champion for 1986.
Well, I think you're setting up Alain Prost very well for that, because he's got an amazingly good team. The three contenders, as I see them, are the man you're looking at right now, followed by this man, Piquet. So that's Mansell and Piquet. The only other man, in my view, really seriously, is Prost, simply because those three cars are managed and run by the best run organizations in Grand Prix racing today. Berger there is doing very well. Theo Fabi is doing very well, but really it's not a question of preparation in their case. The team just isn't up to it financially at the moment, and Piquet is in the pits. They're having a trouble with the front right. They can't get the front right off. John, are you there? Are you watching this?
I can see it. They're having a hell of a problem there with that right front. The mechanics are actually hitting it with tire arms to get it off. There he is. They got it back on, and he's accelerating out of the pit. 0 to 100 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds, but Nelson Piquet had a very costly pit stop, and coming in right behind him, right in front of our position here, is the McLaren. They've got it up on the jacks. Everyone's working furiously, but still it looks a little slow for McLaren. They set the car down. They're working on the front nose. He has the right wing. The right wing is totally gone, smashed up into a bit of the steering. I hope they have not damaged that suspension. They've got the nose back on. Now they have to hope that that nose is in perfect adjustment. It's going to change the pressure that the downforce applies to the front tires. A bit of confusion. They've got it locked up. Prost is going to be coming right past me here, and he is out of the pits and back into the race. But what a disastrous afternoon so far for Prost. He is having a terrible beginning of this Italian Grand Prix. Back to you.
Well, it looks to me like Nigel Mansell, barring his own teammate came in just to analyze for the moment and there is another man in trouble. That's Alliot. He's got an engine problem. He's smoking badly, and that's in the Gitain. He was quite well placed. In fact, Alliot got himself up to, well, he had dropped back a little bit, but he was certainly doing very well. But in any case, it seems to me that the pit stop that Piquet had has robbed him the chance of winning this Italian Grand Prix. And of course, Nigel Mansell has not yet been in the pits.
Yeah, every time you come into the pits, it just multiplies. There is Rosberg coming in, Keke Rosberg, who was running in fourth position, and John Visignano is also there. John?
They're still having trouble with that right front again. I cannot believe it. The McLaren organization is faultless. The car's back down, RPM's up. Keke takes a look, and he is gone.
Well, that was, again, an abnormally long pit stop. That's not doing any of them any good. There's nobody really threatening them very severely, mind you, at this stage. I think that Mansell now has taken the heat off himself enormously. He is in radio contact, remember, with the pits. That's one thing. So he's been kept informed. And there you see Alio, crippling himself around this racetrack as Mansell finds a way past Dr. Jonathan Palmer. Now here the Ferrari pit. Now they are very good at changing tires. Now this will be Johansson coming in, I suspect, for tires, because remember Alboreto had his little spin and he did come in for a tire change. So I think this will be the Ferrari that these mechanics are waiting for right now.
Michele runs in 8th position, and you know, Jackie, as I watch these pit stops, we've heard, and there is Martin Brundle coming in, and there is Alan Jones going out of the Haas stable. I heard the drivers so many times this year talk about, well, coming in for the pit stop, I know it's something we have to do, but it just multiplies so much, the teeny little errors that can go on. I would imagine it's like using a Porta-John. It's not something you really want to do, but every once in a while, you just have to.
Well, right now, Johansson has to come in for pit. Now, let's watch this Ferrari team. They do very fast pit stops. Look at that. Very clean. Very clean. Still having trouble with the back left rear, but it's still at 9.68. Anything under 11 seconds is very fast, but of course, a 10-second pit stop like he did there, almost 10 seconds, is quite satisfactory. Keep in mind, Nigel Mansell has not yet come in. And as you point out, Gary, Larry, anytime that anybody comes into the pits, you are exposing yourself to potential trouble. So there, that out of the pit is Alio. He's in trouble, so he's being brushed into the garage with all the smoke and what's left of his Renault engine. They will be running, incidentally, Alfa Romeo engines next year, and there is oil on the track. That red and yellow stripe there, in fact, you can almost see the oil line there as they go along.
Probably from Filippo. And by the way, just to summarize up to this point, anticipating Nigel Mansell's stop, the man on your screen right now, 31 seconds to stop for Prost, 18 seconds for Piquet, 14 for Rosberg, and 10 for Johansson.
So there we have it. The pit stops are certainly underway. We have not had our leader in the pits yet. So that will no doubt be coming in a short time. Nigel Mansell leading, and he's in right now. We'll just wait and see this pit stop go on to see if the Williams got it right. John, you talk to us.
Yes, he's a little bit away from me. I can just barely see him, but the mechanics, every one of them have their hands up in the air. He got the RPMs up, and he's back in the race, and I don't think that cost him very much at all, Jackie. I think he will still go back on the track in first place. Is that right?
It is indeed. It was 8.34 seconds, a very good stop for him, so he's in very good shape right now. That was a very positive stop. And there's Keke Rosberg in behind Alboreto, and that is a race that's going on right now. So we certainly have found ourselves in a good Italian Grand Prix. Christian Danner in the pits also. It's live, and we will be back after this. We're back live at the Italian Grand Prix. The officials are suggesting to us that this man is leading the race. Gerhard Berger from Austria, driving the Benetton car with the BMW engine, is coming into the pits, and this is his first pit stop. The black flag is being given to Alan Prost. That is to come into the pits. He had his front nose cone put on. It may have something to do with that. And here is Prost going round the racetrack at a reduced speed right now, I dare say, because he's seen that black flag. He's got radio contact also, perhaps, so he may be informed that he's got to come into the pits this time. But that's a big shock for him, although he had already lost over half a minute in the pits during a very slow pit stop where the front nose cone was changed. So this has been a very unsuccessful race for Team McLaren so far, particularly because of Alan Prost. The Marlboro McLaren was expected to do extremely well. So the leaderboard as follows. Berger is first, then Nigel Mansell is second. Nelson Piquet has been displaced from third place by René Arnoux. He's in third. Piquet is fourth. Johansson fifth. Alboreto is sixth. Rosberg is 7th. Theo Fabi is 8th position. Alan Prost right now is in 9th position. Terry Boots makes up the first 10. Now the Parabolica is about to be negotiated. When he exits this corner, he heads for the front stretch. He has already seen the black flag, so is he going to come in?
Not this time around. Prost stays out. They saw some smoke coming from out of differential there as he came around Parabolica, that 120-degree corner, which actually has an arc on it. I should call it an arc of about 120. The degree radius round is about 270, I believe, Jackie. And by the way, we're talking about Arnoux having moved up, talking about Frenchman moving up into third. Rennie has not pitted yet, and Alain, it looks like he's stopping.
He's pulled off the racetrack. The black flag, gentlemen, can be put away. Mr. Prost will not be seeing it again today. He'll be extracting himself, as he is right now, from his race car, and the World Championship concerns are very heavy. And of course, he was lying in second place in the World Championship at the beginning of this race, lying second to Nigel Mansell, who at this stage is leading the race, and Mansell is now putting him, that's Nelson Piquet, incidentally, who's just passing Rennie Arnoux to re-establish himself in third position right now. So you've got Nigel Mansell leading the race. It shows that Rennie Arnoux is in second because Berger went into the pits. Nelson Piquet is third, but in fact we just saw on the screen this lap chart that we've been given by the officials is one lap in arrears. So Nelson Piquet puts himself into second position, which means of course Williams, the Honda engine, are lying first and second, and that does a big thing for the World Championship. So this is the Italian Grand Prix. We're seeing a lot of excitement. We're seeing a lot of lead changes. We're certainly seeing a lot of incidents, and we'll be back with many more, I'm sure. We're back live. This is Monza, not very far from Milan, and a very nice, warm 85-degree day as Rennie Arnoux is in the pits here at the Monza racetrack. He was in second, well, he wasn't really in third position. He had enjoyed the privilege of being in second position before he came in to change his Pirelli tires. Most of the Pirelli runners have been coming in just as the Goodyear runners have to replace tires. And there you see now Nigel Mansell pulling himself in there. That's car number 5, you see, the leader of this event. And while he is leading at this stage, it might be a good opportunity to go down and join John Visignano. John, could you perhaps tell us how many cars are out of the race and who they are?
Well, Jackie, unfortunately, it's getting to be somewhat of a long list, starting with Ayrton Senna with the gearbox problem right at the very start. Patrese and Tambay came together, eliminating one another. Scinzani on a spin, Nannini on a spin, Capelli, motor, we believe, Warwick. We saw his wing certainly in a very strange position. We don't know if that's exactly what happened. He broke on the far side of the circuit and hasn't actually been seen since. Dumfries is out, Hoop Rottengatter is out, Alio is out, and obviously Alain Prost. We saw him just sitting up against the guardrail there. He very slowly came around the circuit for 2 laps and then actually retired the car on the side of the circuit after getting the black flag. I tried to stop Ron Dennis when he came running by here for 2 officials running after him to find out why the black flag was shown, but actually Ron was not in the mood to speak. We'll try and get the exact story as soon as possible. Larry, Jackie.
Well, thank you very much. It's certainly been a race of excitement, this, and keep in mind we have only 4 World Championship events left in this 1986 season, including this race. Of course, ESPN will be covering the remaining 3 Grand Prix. The Grand Prix of Portugal is the next one, which takes place on the 21st of September. Then we go to Mexico for the Grand Prix of Mexico. It's been a long time since that's been there. And that takes place, I think, on the 12th of October, that date is, and before the final round in Adelaide, Australia. On the 26th of October, again ESPN will be giving you coverage as we watch this great tussle, and that was Nelson Piquet you saw in your picture there, lapping the slower cars. There's our leaderboard. Nigel Mansell leads, Nelson Piquet second, Berger, Johansson, and Alboreto is up there again in 5th position, 2 Ferraris 4th and 5th. Keke Rosberg of Finland is in 6th position. Keke will be having his last year in Grand Prix racing. He announced at the German Grand Prix that he is going to retire at the end of this season. Alain Prost, as John Visignano has just told you, is out of this race. He's not had a good weekend. I was out at the first chicane this morning watching the boys do their stuff, and Alain did a little spin for us. Didn't hit the guardrail, but was lucky to avoid it. So it hasn't been an ideal time. He was very relaxed. I had dinner with him last night and with Ron Dennis, and they were in relaxed mood, but I think he had aims at the World Championship, And if Nigel Mansell wins today, of course, he just gives him that little better chance. And one of the Benetton cars, that is car number 19, which is Teo Fabi. Look at the oil in the front of his helmet. Somebody's dropping a lot of oil. You can see that black patch there on the white helmet.
I saw it earlier, Jackie, on the helmet also of Nigel Mansell. And we've seen a couple of cars, most notably one of the Ligers who was dropping oil. And the bonnet is coming off of Teo Fabi after a great run. Teo, who had to start at the back of the grid, had ascended all the way to 7th. Attrition helped him with a couple of positions, but he moved up to 10th easily by himself. He had a great start, Jackie. I was watching him in the back of the pack, and he was out accelerating everybody from the back of the grid and darting, weaving, moving back and forth, and seemed like he was poised in a position to at least move up to the top 6 before the day was over. But as has happened so many times this year, the lid comes off.
Well, they're taking the spark plugs out of the BMW. It's been a wretchedly bad year for BMW. They simply haven't had reliability, and I'm afraid it looks like the same thing's happening again. Bad year so far for Ferrari, but Alboreto is driving himself up, and we'll be covering his progress when we get back.
This is somewhat the effect of 215 miles an hour around Monza has on a driver's helmet. As you can see, oil and debris is somewhat streamed back a little bit aerodynamically. Now this screen here, protective screen in front of his eyes, the visor, is a good 1/8 of an inch thick, and that'll actually stop a rock at well over 200 miles an hour from coming in. But another problem, the sparks you see coming out from underneath the cars. If Derek is following a gentleman who's throwing sparks for several laps, those sparks made of titanium bits will actually burn the visor and create little brown spots all over the place. And after 2 or 3 laps of that, you actually obstruct the driver's vision. They have tear-off shields to help with this, but still, another problem of seeing down the road here in Monza.
We're back live at the Grand Prix of Italy at Monza, great name, and you're looking at the man in 2nd place. You saw the interval between he and the man who's leading him, Nigel Mansell, driving with, of course, the same team. As we were away from doing that commercial and on that helmet feature, Michele Alboreto's Ferrari expired right in front of the pits. Nelson Piquet caught up a lot and has now set the fastest lap in the race, averaging more than 146 miles an hour. So a lot has happened in those 2 minutes. The helmet piece, of course, is quite interesting because you had already seen the helmet of Teo Fabi with that oil splattered all over it. And of course, the aerodynamics of the car helps that oil and whatever else has been thrown up to pass over the cockpit. But certainly, it is an amazing race, as Monza has over the years. But look how close those two are now. Piquet is certainly putting the pressure on, and it would be very interesting for him if it's 2.8 seconds the gap right now, by the way, and that is closing every lap. I saw Nigel Mansell glance at his mirror there just as he came out of what is called the Ascari turn. The great Alberto Ascari was killed just at the top of that picture that you've just been watching. Sadly, Jochen Rindt was killed in the Parabolica, the corner they're just exiting right now. It's a race.
Wolfgang von Trips, the accident that killed 13 spectators, which was probably the most devastating moment, I would suggest, really, in the history of Grand Prix racing, at least the modern era.
It could easily have been the end of it, as it was in some countries for a short period. John Visignano, you're down in the pits. More from you.
Down in the pits, and Michele Alboreto has just walked right past here. I tried to ask him what was wrong, but he was in a deep conversation with his team manager at the moment, and he was having a problem with his right hand. He had some tape around the hand, of course, where the gear shift is being used, but he had worked his way through the tape, and there was actually a callus and a little bit of blood on the palm of his right hand. I don't think that's the reason why he stopped, but he was certainly having some pain from that, and possibly the pain from his shoulder. But at the moment, the initial reaction down here is that it was an engine problem that pulled Michele off. Also, the black flag on Prost, as near as we can make out. Again, trying to get information out of McLaren is a little bit like getting blood out of a stone. But still, at the moment, the black flag may have been given when Prost lost that wing. It was observed around the track, buffeting up and down, and they were afraid that the whole nose cone and wing was going to go loose and fly off and probably damage himself and maybe another competitor. Initially, the black flag could have been brought out for that reason, and then he naturally expired due to motor problems off to the side of the circuit. The black flag was being shown, and the McLaren pit was showing him to stay out there. So, that's the problem, and that's the story down here. Back to you in this battle for the lead.
Well, the battle for the lead is in fact taking place. That's the speed in kilometers as they pass the fastest part of the racetrack, 315 kilometers per hour, which is about 186 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So they're a little slower than they were in practice, but look how close those two Williams cars are now becoming to get together. Now, there's no team orders in this team. Keep in mind that both of those men are running for the World Championship. Nelson Piquet is sitting in 4th position right now with 47 points against the 55 points of Nigel Mansell, and I seriously think he's going to pass him. So I think we're going to stay glued to television sets and see what's going to happen.
Not only are there no team orders, Jackie, but the blood between these two teammates, roommates, has not been at the best in recent weeks. In a race a couple of weeks ago, Nigel Mansell was known to be a little miffed, I guess, on a secret that he felt that Piquet had discovered that made his car faster. Traditionally, in Formula One racing, a teammate shares with his stablemate any secrets that he happens to find, and it didn't happen in Hungary.
Well, that may be so. Piquet's a cool character, but he's very calm. You know, in a situation like this, Nigel Mansell, I think if he had been behind Piquet, would have attempted to pass by now. But Piquet has more patience. He's won more races. He's been in the championship leaderboard more often. And I think he just has that little maturity which you can't buy. You got to wait for it. And look how close he gets right here. Will he attempt to pass? I doubt it. I doubt it, because Nigel has moved over on the line that you would be required to use to get through. Nigel is now blocking Nelson Piquet. And look, Nigel just missed a gear change. Piquet is now taking it.
Move over there, pal.
That was it. A little order from the world champion. You see, Piquet has won that world championship a few times, and now it's just a question of him being able to exercise that. Now, can he lead him away here, and can he open up this gap? And if he can, keep in mind that he had an enormously different pit stop. He was about 10 seconds slower in the pits. Not quite 10 seconds, but certainly 8 seconds slower in the pit than Nigel Mansell. So, in fact, Piquet has driven an extremely good race. And here there's this pass again. As they accelerate out the corner, I think you'll find
that the
gear was missed by Nigel Mansell, and of course Piquet was in a position to just take advantage of that error. So there they have it. A new leader, Nelson Piquet, leads this Italian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell is lying second. In third place is Gerhard Berger, and we'll be back. This is ESPN's coverage of the Italian Grand Prix from Monza near Milan in Italy. This is Jackie Stewart with Larry Nuber and John Visignano, bringing you a very exciting Italian Grand Prix. There's been a lot of lead changes. There's been a lot of incidents, both in the pits and on the racetrack. Right now, you're looking at the battle for third and fourth place between Stefan Johansson and Gerhard Berger. The fastest lap has now been set by Theo Fabi, who's climbing his way up at an average speed of 147.269 miles an hour. But the lap is going ahead here. As you can see, Gerhard Berger got past the slower car there without too much trouble. Stefan Johansson has been left behind here. He'll have to clamber around as they exit the Parabolica, one of the most famous turns here in this very famous racetrack. Just go through the leaderboard for you at this stage, since we're at the top of the hour. We've got Nelson Piquet leading this race. Nigel Mansell is second. Gerhard Berger is third. Stefan Johansson is fourth, driving a Ferrari in front of a very Italian crowd. Keke Rosberg is fifth. And then everyone else is one lap down. Terry Butch, driving a USF&G Barclay Arrow, is sixth. Then Alan Jones in the Ford engine car. And here we've got off of the track, looks to me like it's René Arnoux who's pulled off in the Ligier. Then we have Martin Brundle in 8th position, Christian Danner in 9th position. Making up the top 10 is Philip Streck. And here you have it. Look at the difference between these two cars, as the Italians give us some wonderful sign language here. We are, of course, privileged to have their coverage.
Yeah, I guess that was the interval. All of a sudden it popped up there between third and fourth. Speaking about being the top of the hour, you know, it's about 4 p.m. over here in Italy. It's not quite nearly that late back home in the States. As a matter of fact, I know that it's well below the noon hour, and people across the country States get up to watch these races. I particularly would like to say hello to a good friend of ours, Rick DeBrule, out in Phoenix. He and the Arizona region of the SCCA have put together a program that was for the benefit of kids, I believe. Out in Phoenix, they got up as early as, it was well before 9 o'clock, wasn't it, guys? I know that you're out there having bagels with Bernie or crescents with KK. The question is going to be, who is the champagne going to be with? But we'd like to welcome you to our broadcast in what must have been the pre-dawn hours of the western states of America. We also ran into the people who have the cable system down in Starkville, Mississippi. It's a cable company that actually has 4 systems down there, among which is Sledge, Mississippi, which I believe is the home of Charlie Pride, I think. And it's one of the larger subscribers of the ES signal down in the south. They have about 60 homes on one of those systems.
Well, in the meantime, back here in Monza, we have Nigel Mansell looking for a way to find a way to pass his own teammate. And that ain't going to be too easy. Keep in mind the World Championship points right now. Nelson Piquet would pick up 9 points for the championship, but Nigel, by finishing second, would still take up 6 points. So he would only give away 3 points, really, and that's a major issue at this time. John Visignano, you're down in the pits. What are you doing down there?
Well, Jackie, just trying to survive a little bit of the Italian crowd that is beginning to push back into the totally overwhelming us, but still. Alan Jones threw a wheel weight and had to come back in the pits and have that tire change. Arnoux spiked in for the gearbox now. He has stopped on the circuit, so we may assume that it was the gearbox that finally gave away. Palmer and DeCesaris are in the pits. The cars are being worked on. Palmer is an electrical problem. DeCesaris, we have no idea, but the mechanics are flying around there like crazy. I don't think they know either. But there's still one battle going on here in Monza. Back to Larry and Jackie.
Well, we see a wonderful piece of artwork going on right now. The Italians have given it. It looks like there's an enormous accident going to occur here between the dots. So I think those relate, as you could see, by the color codes and where everyone is on the racetrack.
A little bit of high-speed Pac-Man there. And by the way, it was accurate, too. I mean, don't try to correlate the colors of the dots with the colors of the cars, but it was accurate as far as the relative positions of the cars on the track. And there is Mansell, who seems to have closed in a little bit on Piquet, but as Jackie has mentioned a couple of times in this broadcast, Wiley Nelson, he may be going only as fast as he needs to at this juncture of the race. It certainly will do him no good to try and take that Williams Honda out and run it into the ground. So Piquet, I'm sure, is well in charge right now, at least intellectually in his own mind, of what's going on. You know, Jackie, something I'd like to mention with about 10 laps or more to go here in this race. Americans, some of you may not really appreciate the significance of this racetrack and this community for the sport of racing. Monza has been here not just throughout the modern era of Formula One, which began in 1950, but well back into the early years of the century. And it has been one of the real mainstays of the sport of automobile racing. And as we talked about the Von Cripps accident, it has gone through a lot of other challenges to the absolute survival of the sport, and it has survived it all. I remember when I was growing up, as a matter of fact, when we first started running main events and segments, the word Monza style crept into the language of the racing states. That term Monza has been a part of automobile racing really in my life since the very beginning. The setting here is most unusual. We're very close to the city, and it's in a setting that is a park. As a matter of fact, it's like being a race run through Central Park in New York City. A lot of mature trees around, as you can see in that shot right there. A lot of shaded paths when you drive or walk down from one part of the course to the other. You're often covered, and vendors. My word, there are vendors everywhere. And the interesting thing that I discovered was it's very difficult to find Monza souvenirs. They were all Ferrari souvenirs.
Well, as a matter of fact, Ferrari have been doing very poorly this year, and the crowd today is 24% down than it was last year, entirely due to the fact that the Ferraris have been so uncompetitive. But Stefan Johansson is right there. Now, there's an interesting man. Incidentally, look at there. There's Stefan's information column. He's minus 14 seconds on Berger. And by the way, we hear that Stefan got engaged the other day. He's keeping a little unofficial at the moment. But Charlotte, a lovely lady from America, just whispered in my ear the other day that they had got themselves engaged.
She went to high school that played at my high school. league, too, athletic league. How about that?
Well, well, I didn't know. Did you compete against Charlotte? Is that what you're trying to do?
Neil Goldberg, our producer, is telling me she's not in my league, but I beg to differ with him. I think she might be, if I stretch my imagination.
Well, we have the Italian Grand Prix, a lot happening. Piquet, Mansell, Berger, Johansson, Rosberg, and Butson fill the first six. We'll be coming back to you. Well, while we were away in commercial, this young man, Stefan Johansson, has given himself a little boost and got himself into third position. That's pretty impressive. So now the leaderboard says Piquet, Mansell, Johansson, Berger, Rosberg, Butson. And it seems to me that Berger's going through some trouble because he definitely slowed considerably as Stefan Johansson just flew past him. So Stefan Johansson in front of his Italian crowd, he's fighting for his position in Ferrari because the suggestion is that Berger is going to go and join Ferrari. So
interesting moment, eh?
He wants to demonstrate himself today in front of his own people. And Mr. Ferrari, who incidentally will be watching this on television, 88 years of age, hasn't been at a race for 30 years, and he'll be sitting glued to the television set, and I'm sure he's seeing the performance of his young man right now.
As we continue to watch Johansson, who, by the way, is about, I'd estimate about 12 seconds behind the leader, so with about 7 or 8 laps to go, it's unlikely that Stefan will be able to challenge for the lead. One other little chapter about Monza, Jackie, that I think we need to bring up, the high banks. You know, the high banks were constructed here, and at the time when they were put up, it was unlike any other race course in the world. The high bank idea first came, I guess, from Brooklands over in England, the very first part of this century. But when they constructed them here, it was such an architectural quantum leap is really what it was at that point, because nowhere else in the world was there a high bank racetrack, particularly one that was 2.5 miles in length. The high banks here, every once in a while, you get just a glimpse of them. They still exist as the shot comes on the front stretch. Now we're going to go back and look at Johansson moving around there in the background. There he is, moving around Gerhard Berger. That, again, is the change in position for third. Stefan Johansson in the Ferrari, Berger in the Benetton BMW. But the high banks, on the shot on the front stretch, every once in a while, you can get a glimpse of them. Remember the race of the two worlds back in 1956 and 1957? The high banks are still there, and they are indeed a very awesome sight. And the interesting thing about these 35-degree banks, and I walked down and stood down in one of the turns, is that they're very narrow. They're much narrower than even the half-mile high banks in the Midwest, and they're all cement, and it's like real thick, about 5 or 6 feet thick.
But it is very rough. That's the trouble. So you're looking for your first and second men as they go through the Parabolica. In the meantime, we're waiting to hear from John Visignano in the pits.
The ongoing story of the black flag down here at the Prost is now we understand it. Sorry for the confusion, but it is a confusing period of the race and the championship. Exactly what happened. There is some minuscule rule. It says once the field has left the grid, you cannot switch cars unless it has been programmed before. Now that is absolutely impossible to ever do. So he was protested by another team. No one is telling who the other team was, but why he was black flagged and why Ron Dennis was running back and forth here so many times was the fact that another team protested the fact that he changed cars after the grid had actually left for the warm-up lap. A little bit of confusion in the reading of the rules and a great deal of confusion down here. Back to the and you.
Got to believe that one of those teams had either yellow or gold in their car.
That could easily have been. Well, a 2.884 second difference between first and second place, and it does seem that Nelson Piquet has opened up this gap considerably. He has certainly exercised a little authority here, and we only have around about 5 laps to go in this race, and Nigel Mansell may well have settled for second place. It didn't seem that there should be any problem with fuel in this race. I was speaking to 1 or 2 of the teams before the race. It didn't seem that they would be down on the limit of fuel use, so therefore we shouldn't see anybody backing off for that reason. Let me just run through this for you. Piquet, Mansell, Johansson and Berger. Berger's in 4th place. Keke Rosberg, Alan Jones. Terry Boutsen is in 7th position because Alan Jones is now past Terry Boutsen. And there you see our color-coded things again. You can see Nelson Piquet, you can see Nigel Mansell. Then Stefan Johansson comes out of the Parabolica, as of course the others are in the first chicane. And Berger is well behind now, only entering the Parabolica as Johansson passes the start-finishing line. So therefore, a very useful little diagram being shown here by Italian television. As I said, Alan Jones in the Ford-engined Haas team, and of course that's the American end of Carl Haas team. Very successful man, Carl Haas, in the United States of America, Can-Am champion, and of course has won the USAC championship also. And that team have now got themselves in 6th position. Then you've got Terry Boutsen, as I said, in 7th position. Christian Danner is doing very well indeed, up in 8th position. 9th is Martin Brundle, driving the Data General Tyrrell, followed by his own teammate in 10th position, Philip Streff. Theo Fabi, who had such an unfortunate beginning and then long pit stop, has got himself up to 11th position. And a young man who's never started a Grand Prix until this weekend, a young man called Cafe, CFFI. He's 5 laps behind, but he's in 12th position and he's still rolling.
Speaking of the USF&G Arrows, there is one right now getting ready to be gobbled up by Nelson Piquet, but Boutsen and probably Fabi.
No, that's Fabi. He's out. He's in the gravel pit, as they call it, and those gravel pits are introduced to slow the cars down.
Parabolica look like. Yeah.
So that they don't get as far as the barriers themselves. So now it's been hooked up to one of the cranes, and that car is the first chicane. It looks like Theo Fabi just went straight on there.
No, not Parabolica either, Jackie. It was the first half of the course. Yeah.
First chicane. It's just entering what used to be the old Curvo Grande, which is, that's what you're looking at right now, an amazing corner. There is the Lesmo. And there, of course, is Nelson Piquet carrying number 6 with the strong American involvement of Mobil, who have supported this Williams team for a long time. They have dominated the season, the Williams team. Frank Williams started off by having the most horrific accident before the season started, got himself totally paralyzed from the shoulders down, and is still recovering, is not at this race. An amazing recovery nevertheless. He is in England, he'll be watching this. The spirit of the Williams team certainly was helped a lot by knowing that Frank Williams needed so much for them to do well to help his recovery. And they've been so mechanically powerful this year.
As Jackie mentioned at the top of the show, almost all of the great Formula One drivers have won here. In the 35 years of the history of this race, the modern era of Grand Prix, only 3 drivers have won this 3 times. The great Fangio in the 50s, as well as Sterling Moss. Ronnie Peterson once won 3 times in 4 years in the 70s, and should Nelson Piquet win today, Jackie, he would become the 4th 3-time winner of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza.
Well, that'll be a nice thing to do for the record books. It's something that you never much think about when you're doing a race of this kind, and he has only a handful of laps still to go, less than 1 handful of laps, as a matter of fact. And of course, he's been kept advised. Nelson Piquet has got himself a clear lead now. Nigel Mansell has satisfied with 2nd position, 6 points in the World Championship. For 3rd position, you pick up 4 points. And there you see that distance has opened up by 6.5 seconds now. Piquet leads Mansell. So you get 4 points for 3rd place, 3 points for 4th place. 5th place, you get 2 points. And then finally, 6th position. With only about 1.5 laps to go, we have 1 point for the 6th position. So the World Championship has certainly changed its face with this event. But keep in mind, there are 3 races still left in this championship this year. And of course, all 3 of those events will be covered here by ESPN. And of course, 9 points being there for the winner at each event. There is still plenty points for these people to still win the World Championship from further back.
Jackie, one thing that is going to happen today, if these Williams continue to finish 1st and 2nd, they will lock up the Constructors' Championship for 1986. They came in with a 30-point lead, and prior to today's race, there were 72 points available. I think my mathematics on that will work out to be correct, with the McLarens perhaps getting only about 3 or 4 points, and with the Williams cars collecting 15, it's really going to pare down the number of points that are available. And if they don't lock it up, they're going to come very close to clinching the Constructors' Championship, and only an absolute disaster, which won't happen as we begin our last lap here. You can see the winners, the potential winners of this race are down to 3, and in all practicality, 1.
Well, I think Nelson Piquet must be certainly addressing his mirror as he goes round into this final chicane here. Accelerates along, comes out of there in 3rd gear, changing into 4th, into 5th, and into 6th. And there he is. He's passing the car of Patrick Tambay that had the problem early on.
About halfway around.
Yep, he's certainly now heading for the Ascari corner, which is more of a chicane than it is a corner. It was introduced in 1973, and he approaches that now. Alan Jones, he just lapped again. That's the Ford engine Haas engine car. That's a car that Alan Jones is now bringing into 6th position in this race. Very satisfying. The Ford engine's done very well in the last 3 Grand Prix, picking up very useful championship points. And now we go to the parabolic at the final corner, and if Nelson Piquet were to switch the gas off now and coast home, he would still win this Italian Grand Prix.
Got about an 8-second lead, Jackie. Here it
Mr.
comes.
Tavoni is up there with the checkered flag. He gave me the checkered flag a couple of times. Historically, he's a man who does it here, and he gives it to Nelson Piquet. And that is the end of the Italian Grand Prix. Let me run down what we've got here. We've got Nelson Piquet winning. Nigel Mansell comes through in 2nd position. In 3rd position is Stefan Johansson driving a Ferrari. In 4th position, driving the Marlboro McLaren, is Keke Rosberg. In 5th position, after having set the pace early on, is Gerhard Berger. In 6th position is Alan Jones. And there you see the Ferrari. The Ferrari still going around this racetrack, waving to the crowd very happily. John, it must be a happy Italian crowd down there in the pits.
Well, they're very happy for the Ferrari finish, that's for sure. We have to double-check those results, actually, Jackie, because when Berger came by here the last time, he actually looked like he ran out of gas. He did cross the line, but we don't know if Boutsen might have gotten that 6th spot. Let's just see if the computer picks that up and what is decided on that. And the crowd is already surrounding my position. I've got to get out of here. We've got to get this equipment in and locked up. The pits are being totally stripped down, and everyone is headed for the paddock. Larry, Jackie, it's been great. We'll see you all in Portugal.
Jackie, it really happens quickly here. I mean, that is more than just a reputation of the very excitable Italian crowd. And as I was walking around today, I used the word, they were anticipatory. It was a crowd that was just walking around, sensing, waiting for something to happen, even as early as 8 a.m. over here in Italy this morning.
Well, certainly quite an event, and it's an Italian Grand Prix of a lot of incidents. We're going to be coming back to give a lot more information, the final placing and the World Championship standings after this.
The end.
Well, we're back. The end of the race has occurred. The Italian Grand Prix is history for yet another year. Let me go, first of all, through the top 10, how they finished as the Italian crowd gather round the winner's rostrum here, and it certainly will be an excitable one, because remember, there was a Ferrari who finished 3rd. So Nelson Piquet of Brazil wins this Grand Prix of Italy. In 2nd place is Nigel Mansell, driving a Williams Honda, and of course that's a great success, a 1-2 for the Williams team again. And you're looking at it right now, and there's the World Championship standings as we can see them. Nigel Mansell with 61, then 56 points for Piquet, Prost with 53, then Ayrton Senna with 48, just as they had started. Keke Rosberg gets 22 points, Stefan Johansson down into 18 points. But let's continue the top 10 that finished this race. Piquet, Mansell, Johansson, Rosberg. And then you had behind him at 5th position, Berger. He, remember, led this race and just had one piece of trouble after another. Alan Jones finished 6th, Boutsen 7th. Then was Danner was 8th, Streff was 9th, and bringing up in 10th position was Martin Brundle. The Constructors' World Championship, what about them, Larry?
Jackie, the Williams team has clinched a tie. They have now racked up a total of 117 points to the McLaren's 72, which means there are 45 points, the difference right there. It so happens there are 45 points left, a maximum total of 15 per race. So, yes, the Williams have clinched, but it's only a tie.
Well, that's still to come. Of course, there's more races still to come. We have 3 more of the Grand Prix season on ESPN. We've got the Grand Prix of Portugal on the 21st of September, followed by the Grand Prix of Mexico on the 12th of October, with the final event of the year, the Grand Prix of Australia in Adelaide. One of the great Grand Prix last year. That'll be taking place on the 26th of October. So there you see a Ferrari waving itself to 3rd position. Now, we'll be coming back, of course, for lots more coverage on ESP of all kinds of motorsports. In the meantime, this Italian Grand Prix has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA radios, built for you to take on the road, and by Budweiser, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. So the winner's rostrum there, as everyone awaits, the winner coming up to receive his trophy. Larry Newber is with me, and of course John Bisignano has been in the pits. An exciting Monza, Larry.
Jackie, the final run to the Formula One Championship yet on ESPN. We'll have more IndyCar races, more stock car racing. Don't forget to join us all for Speed Week this Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern.
Well, we always have a great time in our ESPN coverage of these Grand Prix, and this Italian crowd are going to go wild when those drivers step up there. Look at that, Nelson Piquet. There's some Brazilians, if you've ever seen them before. They're happy. Coming across as they look for their winner. We'll be back for more racing in the future. Jackie Stewart, Larry Nuber, and John Bisignano saying goodbye.